Amarawahopa, thank you for joining us. We start at the White House, where a Cherokee citizen has been awarded the highest military honor in the United States. On Tuesday, President Joe Biden honored Army Specialist Dwight W. Birdwell with a Medal of Honor. Birdwell now adds his name to the list of over 3,000 others who have received this distinction.
A member of the Cherokee Nation, Birdwell credits the Cherokee veterans who came before him and encouraged him to serve when he called. And I might note, Native American communities, a larger percentage, serve in the United States Armed Forces at a higher percentage rate than any other cohort in America.
Biden outlined Birdwell's actions in Vietnam, saying he helped drive back as many as 1,000 enemy troops in 1968. 3 others were also given Medals of Honor at Tuesday's ceremony. While chemical pollutants have been found within the traditional subsistence foods of Indigenous communities, according to environmental science and pollution research, marine animals hunted by Yupik residents of St. Lawrence Island were found to have varying levels of manufactured chemicals. This was found through samples donated by hunters, researchers, and residents. The chemicals found are some of the same that are seen in fire retardants. The study said contaminants can be carried to the far north by changes in the atmosphere and because of climate change. They can persist for up to decades. And later in our newscast, we'll speak to an environmental advocate about this issue. The first Native American treasurer is laying out her economic agenda. Mohegan Chief Lynn Malerba says she comes from leaders who instilled in her the need to keep her nation healthy. President Biden recently appointed her to be the nation's treasurer. Her name will soon appear on all U.S. currency. She says she hopes to sign either Chief Lynn Malerba or Chief Many Hearts Lynn Malerba. She says she wants tribal nations to have a seat at the table for policies that affect them.
With the trust and treaty obligations that the United States has towards tribes, it's important that our voices be heard and that we are not just consulted about policies, but that we get to the point of agreement around how policies are best designed and implemented so that tribes have an equal seat at the table.
She will also oversee the new Office of Tribal and Native Affairs at the Treasury Department. 17 Indigenous high school and college students took to Princeton University and then to Capitol Hill in June. They are advocating for issues most important to them. It's time for the U.S. government to take responsibility for its role in federally run boarding schools. That was the message this group of young Pueblo people took to Washington, D.C. in June. The group traveled to meet with members of Congress as part of the Summer Policy Academy 2. The program is put together by the Leadership Institute at the Santa Fe Indian School. But in order to get to these high-profile meetings, it took a lot of work.
My group, we focused on the protection of cultural landmarks such as Chaco Canyon.
Lauren Vigil was one of 17 participants. Her cohort studied at Princeton University's School of Public and International Affairs for almost a week. The young people here learned about the decades of federal policy that have impacted Indigenous people, including the assimilation, termination, and self-determination eras. They also learned about modern-day issues and worked with Indigenous experts to identify a project area. They researched and created presentations, even writing a policy paper. Lauren and her group's idea was to create a curriculum for students and policymakers to learn about the sacred site Chaco Canyon. This curriculum, Lauren said, is important for others to understand why this site needs to be protected from oil and gas leasing. She and her group took that message directly to New Mexico's senior senator, Martin Heinrich.
He was in a full agreement to the curriculum, not only at the state level, but at the federal level. And a couple of our other asks were to continue the protection of Chaco Canyon, not only for the 20-year federal process, but for the administration, which is permanently protecting Chaco Canyon.
Other groups focused on housing initiatives and motherhood programs for young Indigenous people. Preston Sanchez is an attorney in New Mexico. He said his group was clear about what they wanted to address: boarding schools.
If you think about it, these young people put together a simple message. If you do harm, if you make a mistake and you do harm to someone, what do your elders teach you? What do you learn as a youngster? You make an apology first.
And at the same time, there was another Pueblo leader in Washington, D.C. invested in this topic. The cohort met with Secretary Deb Haaland, and their work was acknowledged before the U.S. Senate Committee on Indian Affairs.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter a letter of the students into the record that recommends Congress introduce legislation to formally apologize for generational harms resulting from the federal Indian boarding schools and policies.
The group even traveled to the White House to meet with Indigenous staffers.
For me, I'm someone who's learning from them as much as they're learning from me, and I get to witness their strengths, the things that they bring to the classroom or to the Princeton University institution.
In Albuquerque, New Mexico, Aaliyah Chavez, ICT News. The Summer Policy Academy has announced it has signed a new agreement with Princeton University to continue the program for the next 5 years.